Welcome to the Black Phoenix Financial Podcast. Lee Kemp here for another week of financial education for myself. Here with my financial guru, Ethan Cope. How are we doing this week?
Good to see you all. Have a very energizing show in store for everyone. Excited to talk about the personalities and add some new skills.
I'm looking forward to it. I really enjoyed last week, so I'm hoping we can build on that, build the education for me and everyone out there listening as we go. Or like we said, people who are already in the game, just getting some a new twist or a new viewpoint on how you look at the market. I was going to start off by asking how you're doing this week, but actually I want to reference what I've seen on your social media. People out there listening, go over, follow Ethan. It is at T4A Phoenix. That is at T4APHENUX. But been some great stuff with you dunking yourself in some cold water, which is well outside of my comfort zone.
Very good. Yeah, I like the way you said that, just kind of dunking. I said to my wife the other day, I said, I'm going to jump into an ice bath. I said, well, not really jump. I'm going to ease in. But yeah, I've been doing that every day. I started a daily journal. It's only a minute long. And the idea is to help people control their stress through breathing, through ice bathing, just cold water bathing right now, but we're going to work up to an ice bath. It's the Wim Hof method, which I originally learned in Central Oregon in terms of getting control of my health situation. So I'm glad to share. Please come and add to the party. We'd love to have you.
Excellent. I really love what you're doing. Like I said, some great stuff for coping with stress and just helping people, be in the moment and deal with things, which is much needed in the world at the moment. So no, it's really, really good to say. Absolutely. Encourage everyone over there, give it a listen, give some support, share it, and kind of build the movement. Speaking of Twitter, you can follow us at the show at BP Financial Pod on Twitter. Go over there, give us a follow, give us a retweet. If you like what you see, leave some comments, engage with what you see. The bigger the following, the bigger the message, the more people see this. We really, really appreciate it, trying to help grow the show in its early days. So like you said, we're going to carry on talking about the personalities. Last week, we were going to talk about the three in your Holy Trinities of personalities for stocks. In fact, we got talking about just one of them and that made a whole show. So really good stuff there. I really enjoyed it. We'll round off a little bit in terms of the big baby and then talk about the second of the three personalities for the rest of the show. And of course, for those who, already got some money in it, we'll talk about your stock picks and how they're performing towards the end of the show as well. So
very good.
I think I found a little bit. This is the closest I got in terms of a bit of a big baby last week. So I'll, once I get a hand on how I use my technology again, share my screen here with you.
And before we get into that, I just wanted to mention one thing, and that's the idea of many of the educators in the market, or ones where they have some experience and they're trying to pass on some of that experience, a pay it forward type of thing, like what we're doing. They call themselves gurus, but I prefer a student. And that's all I'm trying to share with our listeners is some of the things that I've learned that are of practical value that took a lot of time to actually find, and to help the ones who are following us, who are listening, to be able to speed up their learning curve. I saw a really nice quote the other day, and it had to do with when you find the right person to speed up your learning curve in education, you actually, where they went from point A to point B, you end up starting, in the middle, just because you've enveloped or grasped some of the tricks. So anyway, I'm excited.
That's great.
It's just
I love
a different mindset.
And I think it's brilliant. And, I certainly do. And I hope those listening do as well. Really appreciate what you're doing here with sharing your learning and getting the message out there. We're all growing together and following in your footsteps. So
yeah, it sounds great. Happy to do it.
See where I got. Oh, what have I done?
All right. So we got a nice chart here, chart with a little bit more volatility, making a lower high.
So it was about here where I've got the mouse. This was the start of the day. So that's the previous day there, and it's a bit up and down, and then it just kind of, I don't know if that's enough to be a baby. It kind of went down, and then leveled out, but it wasn't a significant drop.
Correct. So what we're going to look for here again is we're going to look for, if I can get close enough to the screen to see it, it looks like the 33 level, or slightly above the 33 level, is where it dropped and made a lower high. So for me to identify it as a big baby, I'd like to see that selling that started, then make a definitive sell past that lower or that higher low, almost clearing out that last round of buyers. And what happens for those last round of buyers is they are now what is considered underwater. And when buyers are underwater, they virtually always can't resist selling pressure. If it's a little bit of selling pressure, they can retain their position. But a decisive move, or a move with what I've learned, I learned this from Modern Rock as well, is a move with authority. So we try to get more information. Right now, it's not quite a big baby yet. It's right in the middle. So let's see what it's going to become as we get more information. And it's neat because with patience,
ignore me there.
With patience, there's so much value in observation, because in trading, there's often a few different entries in any given spot. If you have a thesis and the thesis is going to play out, then there's often a few different opportunities to see your thesis come together.
No, that's good. So you set me a task. I don't know if we want to talk a bit more about Big Baby before we move on to the next one.
Yeah,
sorry, I was jumping ahead there.
Let's finish up Big Baby. Let's do maybe just a few more of your homework charts. I just want to show our listeners decisively again that idea, if we could, when the buyers are at a certain level and then you see that red bar, it's almost like it hits the buyer's level at the lowest level and hits them and then pushes through that price point. And that's what makes a definitive Big Baby, is when it's like a death drop or a red bar, like we learned about sellers taking the elevator and buyers taking the stairs, slight movements up. That decisive selling makes the stock the Big Baby that we've been referring to.
Let me just...
Which is a negative thesis.
I'm hoping I don't go glitchy. I'm trying to get my next one up. I'm struggling with my technology today, but we will make this work still.
Oh, that's all right. We all have those days for sure.
I did all planned. It was all smooth, and now it's gone a bit jittery. So I think that was the closest I found to a baby. So what I want to talk through, because what I was looking for as I went through, and I did get a bit addicted to my chart game during the week, is it was that initial bit looking for a lot of negative activity in the previous day or the end of the last day. But what I did see, and it goes back to your patience thing again, is I found a lot where it was indecisive. So maybe there's some negative buys. It opened with a big movement, but then the next half hour, the next hour, very little happened. And I'd follow through a bit more, but there wasn't a lot of movement going on. But I didn't find that necessarily dissatisfying, because actually I was kind of like, I know I don't need to look at this one. I know I don't need to look at this one. I know I don't need to look at this one, waiting for that golden moment. And I think the best one I saw was that one I showed there, where it looked like it was going to go down at the start. It did, but then again, it evened out again. And I think you said, especially for beginners, you want to be going for certainty, don't we? Rather than those middling ones that may or may not do something.
Exactly. And this is the number one thing when it comes to trading that is the most difficult. And that's why I wanted to really start here in the beginning, because the more you see certainty in the market, you see a steady climb of
Yeah,
buyers getting excited and then more excited and even more excited, and anticipation just builds. Those are in the middle of there, at the beginning of there is where we want to try to highlight an entry, and then the opposite mindset, when we're taking a negative bet and we're seeing a slow digression,
yeah,
where they're no longer excited about buying. And then what we saw is like a death drop. That's when you have, once again, certainty, where at least there's going to be a period of momentum where that's going to continue to drop. Or on the other side, for the buyers, when there's an excitement that's building, that's going to continue to build. But the patience to pick out those points
yeah,
and to not try to make it something that it's not, or to say, oh, it kind of looks like that, but not quite, and to just wait or take a very small feeler. That takes, I'm still, virtually every trader I know is still working on that, even the ones that are very successful, the patience to strike at the right moment. Um, and that's what's so exciting about looking at the charts. Brett Steenbarger, that I'm listening to, I only got 5 hours left on my book. And these hedge fund guys, they really believe in the spreadsheets and the simulations, because you can just gain so much visualization, so much experience outside of market hours, just at least knowing what these fluctuations look like, and getting it kind of out of a person's head that a stock just rockets up, or
yeah.
rockets down. The market operates a lot like the ocean.
Like you said last week, coined a phrase which I really liked, which I want us to keep using more and more. In fact, I said I think I was going to make it into our first T-shirt, was the ebb and flow of the
Nice.
market, and getting comfortable and knowing
Yes.
where those peaks and drops are going to happen, but with all the rocking in between. Which, don't get me wrong, I'm nowhere near where that is yet, but I'm starting to feel that concept a little bit more. So I think that
I think you are. Yeah.
the big takeaways I had last week was that, wasn't it? When it's going to drop, you're looking either at the start of the day or during the day for just those constant red, 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 red. So people are losing confidence,
Yes.
and then that's your sign. Like you said, you're looking for that momentum build, but then probably looking for when the momentum slows to know when to get out again.
Yeah, it's kind of, I just thought of that expression when we talked about adversity in one of our other shows, and you can kind of picture in your mind's eye somebody saying, wow, it sucks to be you, looking at somebody in their situation. But with our charts, when the buyers are underwater or the sellers aren't interested in selling, instead of like sucks to be you, we as the observer are trying to be like, what's it feel like to be you? How do I put myself in this person's shoes before I even have any skin in the game? You really want to try to feel like what people feel like in that stock. Are they excited? Are they like what we're trying to gauge? Are they middle of the road? Uh, while their money is involved in this ticker, are they going up and down and up and down? They're kind of used to it. It's what they expect out of their investment, because they know it's high volatility. So all that information, it is really valuable to try to gauge simply how people feel with their investment.
Yeah. No, it's good. What I was hoping for was that atypical big baby that I could come on here and say, look, this is the textbook example. But what I like, and I hope people out there appreciate what we're doing, is none of this is artificial. This is real. So where I'm going off and looking at stuff,
Yes.
I'm going through those charts. I'm trying to learn as we go. When we look at the charts on here, other than the ones I do a screenshot of to talk about, there's no practice, there's no rehearsal. It's real. And I think that's the best way of getting that feel, is making it real. So
I agree.
in terms of your, so tell us a little bit before we look at it. In fact, I'll get out the picture for people to see. So you sent me an example of what I should be looking for as some examples of today's conversation.
Well, I like what you were saying about how this is real, this is raw, this is reality TV that we got going on here.
Absolutely.
And the idea is that this is a very, 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 very hard skill to learn. But in terms of it is real, you can learn it. You just have to simply do it often enough to pick it out. And what's cool is it's super exciting in our show because Lee here is coming into the market with absolutely no knowledge, and as you can see, he's starting to discern what a big baby is and what it's not, and then we're going to build right off that. And what's cool about that basis building is we'll be able to discern what a big baby is and not, and then what a teenage girl is and not, and then a Navy SEAL and what that is and not. And then each time we build on those personalities, they will highlight the other personality, because we'll be able to see what each one isn't. It's cool. It's really neat how they build.
No, I love it. I absolutely love it. And yeah, absolutely. I am not an actor that Ethan's paid. I come across as knowing nothing, and that's because I genuinely know nothing. The one time that skill comes in useful. So
yep.
You sent me just so we can see what we're aiming for, and it might help you give a bit of description. So second personality, which is the teenage girl, and that is there on our screen there that you sent to me, lovingly drawn and message across in the week.
Yeah. This would be a nightmare to trade, to be honest, because you're trying to decide what it's doing. It is possible to trade these. I have done it in spreadsheets just for the fun of it, to try to get an idea of the rhythm. And if there is enough price fluctuation, you can, and like what do you call it? I'm trying to look for the word, but how you would expect it to act. If it is acting the way you expect it to act, you can theoretically buy at the lows and sell at the highs over and over again, or vice versa. But for our purposes and for our beginners' purposes, we do not want to trade these stocks. These are high volatility. They are irritating, and we call them a teenage girl because everybody can relate to that idea when you're raising boys and girls in the teenage area. Everybody goes through hormonal changes, and the emotions can be high and, dare I say, erratic. So the idea here with the teenage girl is to look at tickers and to look at charts and decide what is erratic.
Yeah, and what you sent me was kind of what I imagined when you pitched the concept and you talked about the three personalities of the teenage girl. I was thinking it's highs and lows, ups and downs. I've not been there yet. I'm about 3 years away from when my kids hit that wonderful teenage marker, and I'm going to live and breathe that, which I'm currently bracing myself for, shall I say. But I think in terms of analogy, I would imagine that's what it be. This is probably the most advanced skill set trade to be involved in, because like you said, and you can see it in your picture here, buy low, sell high. But for anticipating when they are, I imagine that's something that's years down the road. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. For every beginner, it makes sense to find something that they can definitely isolate, something that they can definitely say, I see that and I know what it is. And I feel comfortable, I feel confident, and I feel like that's a place I can start to slowly but patiently grow my account. So with the teenage girl being able to pick that up, I'm hoping that we can save our listeners a little bit of trouble.
So hopefully I've said a look through. So again, I didn't really know, like with the big baby, and I'm hoping we get today, I started to learn last week what the hallmarks were to look for going into it. This, I was kind of looking backwards. So once I've done a day, I'm like, does it look like it? So
Gotcha.
I'm thinking in terms of giving you a bit of stuff to talk through, This kind of looked
Very
like one
good.
to me. There's a lot of red, a lot of green, a lot of highs, and a lot of lows, all in one
Yes.
day.
Yeah, and it shows you how a teenage girl can actually turn into a big baby, because you have the erratic price fluctuations that make the investor nervous.
Yeah.
And in this chart, you had a few instances where you see the top of the range and the buyers aren't interested in a follow through. And then at the bottom of the range, we saw a group of buyers just push through that 5250
Yeah.
mark decisively. So just off the cuff, right, for me, looking at this chart, I'd say, hey, this teenage girl just turned into a big baby. And I'd take a negative, at least temporarily, I'd take a negative bet right there
Yeah.
on that mark on this stock. And I would feel fairly confident that it's going to continue that move, at least for a little while, probably down to the 52 mark.
And I see what you say. And again, I'm only like filling in those tiny puzzle pieces in that massive puzzle piece in my brain right now. But I suppose if you were to put a line through it, it would be a slowly, although it's erratic up and down, it's a bit of a decreasing line. And you think that's actually building a bit of momentum then and going to start going in that direction?
Yes, once that, like we were talking about, once the sellers are pushing so hard in a negative area, it's very hard, if not impossible, for buyers to weather that storm. So that's when a erratic stock becomes a negative stock or a selling controlled environment.
And my second one I clipped that I thought was an interesting conversation, because where you talk about volatility, I saw one that had a lot of movement in one day.
Okay.
An awful lot going on, which I just share with you in the audience here. So again, because I forgot, for those listening on the podcast, our last chart there, say, was a fair bit of up and down going on during the day, but a slow downward trend on it. This one here, the selling activity along the bottom is just a smattering of red and green, but a lot of very, very tall bars going on in that red and green. And then in terms of the price at the top, it seems for me, it's a bit of roller coaster during the day, up and down, up and down, up and down. And then towards the last kind of 2 hours, it kind of settles at the top and stays quite static.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what this is pretty much, it's showing a little bit of strength, and it doesn't really qualify for me as a teenage girl so much, because it appears at least that it is developing something.
Yeah.
There's volume going up and down, and then you see a lot of the buyers are settling at that higher price. So one of two things could happen at that area, and it could either go down or up, because what we talked about doesn't really have a personality those last few hours of
Yeah.
the day. It's kind of just stuck in an area of indecision. So what this stock is one of those areas where we observe for more time to decide if it's going to fit one of our three personalities.
No, that's interesting. And I think, again, for talkaways and kind of me articulating what I'm starting to build up in my head, it's that patience and observation. And you talked about it right at the start of this episode, where you said there's a perception that stocks either do that and they're up, or they do that and they're going down. But actually what I've seen just through doing and I'm probably up to about 50 now, so I've not looked at a lot of charts, but what I'm starting to see is an awful lot of that indecision, where there's either not many buys or sells, or a very static price. And I don't think I would ever interpreted that as indecision before, but it's just incredible how much of it is there when my brain's like, just watch, see which direction it's going in. And I'm starting to build that discipline a bit more as or certainly I start to go through my early beginner's journey in this world.
Yes, exactly. And I'm glad that you brought that out, is because 50 charts, it sounds like a lot. And when you're going through it, it is a lot. And this is very hard work. But as the beginner, you will, as you go, you'll start to build on more latitude with certainty, where your range expands, where you are very, as a beginner, you're looking at a very specific area, like we talked about.
Yeah.
And then as your experience grows, you'll be able to say, oh, that very specific area could be coming. So you build a little bit of anticipation for it.
Yeah, and that's good. Like you said, 50 sounds like a big number. It probably does, especially for beginners listening. But those who started the journey know it's not. And I'd have thought that would be loads. As for the first week, you said have a look at 10. I was like, oh, that's a lot of charts. But it's quite addictive as a start. But also, once I don't feel like I really know a lot more than I did on that first. I'm starting to build bits, but it's not enough to build up a knowledge of patterns and stuff yet. But and I recommend to people doing it, chartgame.com, go and sign up. It's free. You can sit on your computer and do it. I've got it on my phone. It's always open on the window. You know what it's like in the world. There's a certain place we all sit and use our phone for a while. And for me now, instead of reading the same news story for the 10th time, I'll flick through some charts, and it's great. There's lots of little bits of downtime where you can absolutely go through and just start looking and observing and hopefully try and start to understand as well.
Very good. That's excellent. And a reminder of what we're learning as well. This is a skill that you can do from anywhere. This is, once you learn it, this is the dream job, because you don't have to have any products. You don't have to have a boss. You simply have to have an internet connection and a knowledge of the skill. So with that in mind, a lawyer, they go to school, often they have the 4-year schooling, then they go to school for additional, 4 or 5 years. A doctor, some of the ones I got familiar with in my situation is anesthesiologists. They go to school for often 10 years, and then they have fellowships and different things that go along with that. And with this skill, being an active day trader or swing trader at the most successful levels makes more money in that area than any other profession. So we're talking brain surgeons, we're talking lawyers, we're talking other surgery professionals, neurologists, dentists, others that we describe as the top echelon in earners. This is the type of education that we're trying to get. So with that $10,000 being the starting point, hang in there, you will get it, but it's going to take some work.
I saw something, there's a lot of stuff, kind of investing mentors and stuff like that on social media across Twitter and Instagram. An interesting thing I saw that, don't get me wrong, I know this is one of those things that sounds like it's a get rich quick scheme and it's easy for everyone, which I know it's not. And there's a lot of discipline, there's a lot of effort. And for traders, there, as much as there's good days, there's terrible days as well.
Yes.
But if on average, you can make $400 a day on average as a trader, over a year, that is a 6-figure income.
Yes.
So that's always in my head. That's the bar. That's, it's realistic, but it's probably not one massive trade. It's lots of good, consistent days that build up over time. And then, like you said, it gets you into that top end of incomes. And, it's possible. And as I just alluded to, you can literally do it anywhere.
Yes. And the cool thing about this era of simulations is you can do all that with no capital. And even at the very minimum, when you want to try to open up a brokerage account to paper trade, they're $500, or they have no minimums now as well. So there's really no reason to not try to take this education on.
And that's what I want to do a bit later on. I do this on other things I do like this, where I pitch ideas live on the show rather than behind the scenes. So feel free to say, Lee, that sounds terrible, because I like being open and honest with our listeners and viewers. But what I want to do is, when I get to that stage of actually putting in some money, and probably do the same when it's paper as well, I want to be really open. So we won't necessarily go into all the details of exactly what every stock is and give away every bit of science. Because there's some products we want to build around that later down the line. But I do want to be very open on my ups and downs and talk realistically about what that looks like that in that account, whether it's average, right, whether it goes really well, whether it goes terribly, because I think all of that is part of the education. And I want to kind of share that journey with everyone as we go on it. I realize I'm a bit away from that now, but when we get there, I think it'll be kind of good to track that for people, and they can see, you know, particularly in terms of percentage growths or percentage losses, which is probably what I need to set myself up for it to be. It'll be good to share that with everyone as we go. So again, this is, you know, this is real and this is raw as we're doing it.
Yeah, raw, definitely. That's the right word. And the cool thing about this being real and raw is that we're giving you the informations to go through that really tiny opening. You know, if you have this huge opening that most traders go through, you know, with virtually no knowledge and the gambling mindset that most people approach the market. Whereas, you know, we're going to teach you the sniper mindset where you're going to be able to thread the eye of the needle with your trades. And when you do eventually open up that cash account and start trading with one share or fractions of shares, we're going to be in an area where we feel comfortable, where we feel confident. And then we see our education actually playing out in real time. Hey, I've been developing this thesis, I've been developing this observation skill to grade these personalities. And now I have a real company that's in front of me. It's moving in real market time, and I'm trying to place my entry. Okay, well, what did I learn about this stock? If it looks like a big baby, I probably don't want to buy it. You know, if it looks like a teenage girl, maybe I want to wait till it settles down. So all these different ideas are going to really come in practical when we do finally open that very small cash account. But we will get there.
No, I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. And I'm just going to say as well, in the future, trading snipers, that is going to be on a t-shirt, and you out there listening are going to be wearing it. So do we want to, what we'll do, say in a minute, we'll round off with talking about some of where you are with the picks you've talked about. But did we want to do a few charts live, and you can talk about what does and doesn't look like a teenage girl in it, much like we did with the babies?
That'd be great. Yeah.
Let's get our chart on. That. So here I am in the game. Do you want me to start clicking through and you can give us some observations as we go?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Here we go. So what does this one look like you coming into the day and as we go into the first half hour here?
My knee-jerk reaction tells me that this is a Navy SEAL, and I'll tell you why. The general trend is up. Even during that general trend, there was lower volume. And then right at as the market opens, I saw green bars really sail upwards. So even though it had that, now it's having red bars selling, which means some of the profit taking. But it doesn't turn into a big baby to me quite yet, because it seems kind of ordinary after that long run up.
Yeah,
that there would be some profit taking. So right now I'm looking to see how much strength it would show. And it's kind of in those areas where a lot of charts that we talked about, where there's a period of indecision, where it's trying to decide what type of personality it wants to be. So right now I would not trade this.
A little marker that you think this could get strong, but you'd want to watch it over a bit of a longer bit of time.
Yes, exactly.
Well, let's play this through today and see how it looks. And then while we're talking about that, what would be your markers for the teenage girl? Would you be expecting to see a lot of, in the run up, and certainly in that first couple of hours a day, a lot of volatility in the kind of the buyers and sellers? Are they the key marking stones of that?
Exactly. Yeah, I'd kind of like to see, rather than indecision, I'd like to see a wider range. So more indecision is the way I would label indecision, is kind of where there's nothing going on, or it's a very tight range of buyers and sellers where okay, let's pause it real quick.
Yes.
So we're coming up to an area right now where we already showed weakness in those first dip where there was the sellers, and then as there was a round of buyers, there was also another round of sellers, followed by another round of sellers, and now it's pushing towards that low.
Yeah.
So for me to decide whether to buy this stock right here in terms of weakness, thinking it might be a Navy SEAL, or trying to just discern by the chart, not knowing anything about the company. If it breaks down here decisively, it becomes a baby.
Yeah.
If it starts having decisive buying here, it could become a Navy SEAL. So once again, we just don't have enough information to make a judgment call quite yet.
No, but you know what you're looking for, though, don't you? And so, like you said, and recapping for my benefit, it came in here at the start of the day. As you said, it had a strong day. The next morning, a lot of people are taking their profit out of it, and it suffers in price because of that. And you think everyone's done their profit taking here, and then it's going to get on course, either a loss of confidence or it's time to ride that next wave.
Yes, exactly.
Cool.
Exactly.
Again, if I recap any of this wrong, tell me, because it all helps my learning. So let's see where we go for the afternoon then.
Yeah, you definitely got it.
Don't get me wrong. When I'm sitting there by myself, I can't apply any of this, but it's all slowly going in there.
Excellent. It takes time. It takes so much time.
And I say that because I want to
still
reassure people listening that this isn't an overnight thing. Oh, we've got a big swing of green there.
Yes, this is totally normal. So my interest, like I said, I still had like a gut feeling about this being strength, or some type of strength at this lower level. So I do still have a feeling, okay, now I might buy here.
Yeah.
With the idea that this could show strength. But that's me with experience, kind of just trying to make a judgment call. But for an observer trying to like be certain to give this a personality, and as a beginner, this is just a no trade. There's nothing worth trading here.
I'm into this one. I'm rooting for it to break through in a minute.
Oh, nice. Yep. And that's the very hard part, is when you have the thesis, all of us, I mean, we want to be right. When we look outside and say the sky is blue, we don't expect for somebody to immediately say, no, that's like, you're wrong, but with trading, you have to learn how to be comfortable being wrong. And then when you're right, hammering it. And that's a difficult skill to master. I was wrong here. I thought this stock might show some strength, but I stayed safe with my analysis. So it's showing some weakness. Maybe tomorrow, the next market day, this could be a stock we could take a negative bet on.
Yeah, seeing where it's gone today.
For today, we just gained market experience again. We saw another stock that didn't quite do what we wanted.
Absolutely. So DLX, do you know what that is as a stock?
Not 100% sure.
I don't want to just
be honest.
hold you on the spot, because what I found interesting with a few of these is I've then gone in to see how it's performed recently against whether or not it was or wasn't strong, depending on where I saw it was going.
Right, and what I'm excited about, and this is the phrase I want to coin, keep this screen up, and this is very exciting for our listeners. It's very exciting for you and your education, and it's exciting for me to teach this to you guys. Is it says game over, no pain, no gain, no problem. But I want to retool that for our listeners, for me and you. And this is one of the biggest phrases to why we do simulations, why we get the education, why we read the books, and why, most importantly, to learn this, you have to put the time in, is because I want to teach no rain, all gain. No rain, all gain. The idea is that you can avoid the pain and have the gain by simply getting the education and staying in the game long enough to weather the pain.
Absolutely. And I think that, again, back to the patience thing, that is so strong. Because once you're out of money, you're out of money. You've got nothing blasting
Yes.
for it quickly. So this particular stock, which is the Deluxe Corporation, from pretty
Okay.
much this point onwards, where it was at $13.98, August 2008, continuously grew up until it peaked in 2018 at $73.62. So your thesis that it was a Navy SEAL was 100% spot on. Maybe not for that one day, but for the next 10 years, it is grow, 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 grow. So
I'm glad you brought that out, is because there are subtle clues that as you learn the market, volume is a very subtle clue, because volume tells you that there is an offset in supply and demand, rather than more, maybe there's more demand than supply. And then what I like to take those clues, and I call them pointing a flag. And those flags, as you pick up on them, they give you clues to the psychology of the investors in that stock. So I'm excited. That was nice that I was right, but I'm wrong quite often as well.
But like you said, this is it. I just thought it's
person.
interesting to see, but it's good you saw those flags, and it absolutely did. And it's actually like you've said, and it's there on your Twitter as well. It's, you're never wrong. You learn. If it's wrong, you've just got another lesson, and you add that to your arsenal, and you keep going, and you keep speculating, and you keep observing. So let's do a second one before we get to your real life observations. So
Okay.
where are we going into here, do you think? And I'll click through that first golden half an hour as you give a view.
So generally, when we first looked at this chart, let's pause it here.
Yeah.
So when I first looked at this chart, I had a negative thesis. Right away, I have a negative thesis because the red stands out to me. The red in the chart, the red in the candles, and then the red in the volume bars. So then I have that negative thesis, and I was just about to say to you, hey, I'd take a short right here. And you hit the next bar and it gapped up. So I'm like, oh man, I'm wrong. I'm glad I didn't say that. But the truth is that it can still be a big baby here.
Yeah.
It's just at a higher level. So I would still, for our observation reasons, I'm going to say I would take a short position here, a negative bias against this stock, and see very small, just to taste it is what I call, or just to dip my toe in.
That's good. I like that. Oh, sorry, carry on.
I was just going to say, and then as it confirms, that's where I would start adding my definitive size.
So that's your part of your tactic, is it? If you've done enough observation to think you know where it's going, you'll put a little bit in, you'll test that thesis, and if that momentum builds, that's where you put a bit more of your portfolio into it.
Yes, and I've learned something from a lot of traders, and it really does seem to be true, is the best trades confirm you're right immediately. And by and large, there are instances where you can be right after being wrong for a bit. They do happen. But for a beginner, and for our purposes, trying to thread that needle, we want to be right immediately. We want to pick out the instances where we're right immediately.
Get that golden sniper shot.
Yep.
Yeah, that's good. And again, for those listening, the bar going into this, it's a little bit up and down, but fairly steady on price all the previous day. But then, like you said, there's a swelling momentum that it's just sell. There's a few shots of buying, but there's a lot of red, like you said, selling on the way out, isn't it? So let's move on a bit and see where we go, because we had that initial gap up, and then it's some selling, a bit more green. A lot of early interest, certainly, in the day in this one.
Yes. And this stock, it just simply makes me nervous.
Yeah.
So I would say teenage girl, or a stock that seems to behave slightly erratically because the buyers aren't super confident and the sellers seems to be these big selling or big sellers come through every time there's a round of buyers. So it's difficult to take. I still have that negative idea towards it, but
Yeah,
it's
and I can
hard
see
for
where you're
me.
saying there's that initial bit at the start of the day. There's a big selling bit, and it's generally selling for the whole next hour then.
So this is something I'd like to highlight on is it took a lot of time to try to show weakness. So the more time a stock tries to show weakness, the more definitive it is once it finally does. Because it's kind of like this. So this is a big baby right now.
Yeah, I can see that. It's definitely come to fruition, isn't it?
It's not a bad kid like what we talked about, just a totally unruly. If it breaks this area right now with authority, like a big red candle, then it could be a momentum short,
Are
negative
we on
bet
the
for at
verge of
least a
going
little
into a
while.
full-blown tantrum here?
That's where we're at. Yep. This would be an instance where a person could think about a negative bet on the stock. They certainly wouldn't want to be a buyer, or if they were a buyer, they'd be very, very careful right here.
An interesting thing I picked up there as well is, like you said, there's the coming into the day, a few flurries of buying, but mostly sell, sell, sell. It, again, trying to get the terminology on right, it gaps highs for the start of the day, has this little bit of activity, but it keeps trying to go down, and then it's a little bit of buy, tries to go down, a little bit of buy. But each time it
Yes.
tries, like you said, each time it tries to show you that negativity, it gets a bit lower.
Yes. And the difficult thing is you have to gauge momentum because you see in that area where the sellers did take control, they gained a slow momentum in the
Yeah,
selling area, and then the momentum dried up. And you see that if you had a negative bet against the stock, you'd want to change, you'd want to get out, you'd want to say, hey, that negative bet is over at this point. Now it appears that the buyers have an interest in seeing this go to a higher price, or at least it seems like it's gotten more attractive to buyers a little bit here. So at this point, the personality changed from being a baby or a big baby to another area of indecision. And we want to see if it could become a big baby again. And that's the interesting part about especially day trading is when momentum shifts, the personality is over, at least temporarily. Um, and for the learning person, you're like, oh man, it just showed itself decisively that it was a big baby. And then by the time it decisively says that personality, it's changed already. So how do you dial in on that momentum? Um, and it just takes experience because it definitely does shift, and there's areas for your risk where your risk should be off the table once you no longer know the personality, and we don't know
yeah.
what this is doing.
So there we go. There's a day on that one, and it does, like you said, it gaps high and it comes back down. And I dare say that's coming out of the day. Where did we start? Oh, I'm breaking my chart game. Oh, it's only giving me the day.
That's okay.
We'll get
And
it
we're
on the
learning,
summary.
our listeners can do that as well if they want to look back through the chart, or simply like we were talking about, hit next bar, next bar, next bar, almost like they're watching a video program or playing a game, and they can just see how markets operate.
So that's done there. No pain, no gain
Very
for me
good.
again. And that was an interesting one for the day. Like you said, it went high, went into baby mode, and then it settled in the middle. And what would you would you keep a watch on that for the next day? Because there's a bit of flurry of buying at the end, but do you think that's in speculation that it gapped into the day and it might do the same again?
I honestly couldn't even speculate on that stock. I would say weakness, but it wasn't enough weakness for me to say it was negative. So it'd be hard without knowing like a few months worth of charts, whether that stock generally showed weakness or whether it was just showing weakness that day. And that's where the experience will help too, is once you do have a thesis, once you are preparing to buy a stock, you can look at, you know, the 1-day chart versus the few months chart. And
Yeah.
different times anymore, I look at the 1-year chart even, because I like to understand, you know, where buyers were trapped, you know, and where sellers wanted to be.
And we touched on a bit earlier. The bit I find useful is going into it, and then it's looking retrospectively and learning. So there's some good stuff there. A big takeaway from today. So today is all about that teenage girl stock. We didn't see a lot of it in the charts,
Yes,
but it should be
we
very
didn't
easy to
actually.
notice. It will be up, it will be down, it will be up, it will be down. I think once we're many years into our journey, that might be a place to revisit and talk about how you trade on that. But for now, that's a steer clear. Babies and seals, which we'll talk about the Navy SEAL next week, you want indecision, teenage girls, either nothing happening or everything happening. Stay away from it if you're like me and you're a beginner. Would I be right in my assessment there?
Very good, very good. Yes, we want to try anything that we can't label decisively. Look at that and say, boom, that's a teenage girl. Look at that, say it's a teenage, what did I say, a baby, a teenage girl, or a Navy SEAL. And we often, you can immediately say, that's what it is. And experience will teach us that.
Brilliant. And as I said, that's not, you want one of those decisive ones to aim your snipe shot at it. So you don't fire often, but when you do, it hits the target.
Very good. And what you'll find with the longs that we're going to take, it feels like you're printing money when you're in the middle of them. And then the negative bets as well. It feels like I actually like taking negative bets on chart game, because they're enjoyable when a stock really does break down on heavy momentum. You feel like you're printing money. I mean, it's just, you can take on leverage, you can take on a lot of extra risk. Leverage is a bad word for beginners, FYI, but in this chart game, when we're having fun and we're learning eventually, and we want to take on some of those more aggressive skills even, it's exciting to capitalize on those really strong pushes.
I love that. I'm excited. What we'll do, said next week, we'll talk more, focus on a bit more of the hallmarks for the Navy SEAL. Again, we'll look at some charts, see how it applies to it, fill in the third bit of that Holy Trinity. And then, you know, when it's time down the road, we'll start on this one. I'll start trying to apply some of it under your guidance, and we'll see how it goes in reality in the risk-free world of play money, not real money.
Yes, very good. And this is all just practicing layups, practicing jump shots, and just getting some of the conditioning that we need. And for our listeners, we had all those book ideas for you guys from the start. And I'm almost finished with Brett Steenberger's The Trading Coach. I've been just, oh my word, there's gold in there. So many valuable psychological tools. So keep that book list that we've been sharing with you in mind. And we'll also give you guys some hot stock picks today.
Excellent. So that's what I was going to lead into. I was going to say, from the play money to the real money, how are your what are your real world eyes on at the moment?
Excellent. Actually, my real world eyes are on the exact same things as last week, because we had market volatility where there was some bullishness in Cisco. It's pulled back now, so that's a buy again. In ADT, it went past my entry prices, and I thought that all my listeners would probably miss it, but it actually pulled back to an even better entry today. Ticker ADT is my number one pick for this week. My number two pick would be Rite Aid. And then my number 3, the constant long-term pick, is the Cisco. So I'm very excited about those purchases.
Excellent. We'll keep tracking how we go. Again, Ethan puts up what he's looking at, how it's going day by day, thoughts and stuff on the market at, say, follow on Twitter at T4A Phoenix. Phoenix is spelled Phenux. We also put up clips, teasers, trades for the show at BP Financial Pod. That is Black Phoenix Financial Pod, BP Financial Pod. Follow us over there. We appreciate all the support. Again, we are early days. We love the people who've been listening. We'd love to get some feedback. And, you know, if you like what you hear and you think others will benefit from it, give us a follow, share some of what we do, give some retweets, let your network know what we are up to as well.
You guys can tell us we're ugly. You can tell us
Absolutely.
we suck, you know, but tell us something, right? Tell us
don't tell me I'm ugly because I'm quite a sensitive soul. But if you want to tell Ethan, go for it. Feel
I can handle it.
Again, we appreciate
Very
any
good.
feedback. If you are on YouTube, just hit subscribe in the bottom corner here. If you are listening on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, again, hit that subscribe button. Each and every Thursday, there will be a new episode for you. Leave us a review. If we've deserved it, hit that 5-star button. If we haven't, don't hit it yet, but stick with us because we will deserve it. We love what we're doing here. We appreciate the build and momentum and the support. Again, Ethan put some great stuff out there around stress management as well during these difficult times. Again, on Twitter, give some love and support for that because love what he's doing there. This has been another very interesting week. We'll be back again next week with the Navy SEAL. He has been Ethan Cope, I've been Lee Kemp, and we have been the Black Phoenix Financial Podcast.
Catch you guys.